effort that we are all the stakeholders in Cassava are doing, especially in the HQCF and Starch. And so today we have a working session together. Usually we all know we would have done it face to face, but for COVID, this has become our new norm, and we're doing well in it as a program. So we have our expert, our quality expert, Fred Jamina, who will take us through the presentation on all the details we need to keep our quality standards right in place in our various processing units. So Fred will take us through. There'll be a short poll for us to get to know, so that will inform Fred as to what to do. So far, I think we will start with the poll whilst we get the responses, and Fred will take over. And when we're done, we'll have time for questions. You can put, as usual, the questions in the chat box, and then we can relay the questions to Fred when it's time for questioning. So Ibe. Yeah. So since we're talking about HACCP and its benefits, we would want to get to understand how well we know. So how much do you know about HACCP? I mean, so we have the possible options, everything, little, have no idea yet. Which are the standards, which are the benefits? Consistent quality, safety products, having access to foreign markets, because you should know the benefits, even if you don't know what's the perceived benefits of having HACCP. And then have you had an occasion to read a GSA standard for Starch? It's either a yes or no, or I'm not aware that there's even a standard for Starch. So once we are all done, we are not a large group, so we'll then treat all the stakeholders to be able to cast their votes, which should take us like 4 seconds. We'll have the final, and then it would inform Fred when he starts. He delves into the deep, and then he knows where to touch and how to. Thank you very much. So we have our friend, our own Cassava experts, cluster expert Joseph with us. We have Linda, our communication expert. We have our colleague Ebe supporting us from Vienna, and then the lead himself, Fred, who will take us through the aspects.
Only 2 people have voted so far, so we invite everybody to vote, and we hope that you are all connected.
Yeah, so we'll treat all those who've connected to please click on the one button or the other for us.
3 people have voted.
Okay, so we're waiting for 2 more to go. We have Ernestina, we have, 1, 2, 3. We have 6 actors, so we expect the 6 actors. 7. Okay.
4 people have voted. We are missing 3 people. 5. Almost there.
Almost there, almost there. Double up, double up, double up.
Still 5.
Still 5. Maybe we draw the curtain if the others do not.
Yeah, but
okay.
Maybe we can also ask people to switch on the video just for a few seconds so that we are sure that everybody is there. And these are the results.
Okay. All right, so we have the results. What do you know about HACCP? Little, 60, so almost 70% know little, 17, no idea. We have which people are aware, safety products, which is true, safety, consistent quality, access to foreign markets. Almost 70% are not aware that there's a standard. And like 30%, well, no, there is the standard. So our work is pretty cut out for us, and we would be able to take it over from there. Hey, and so let's turn on our cameras. We can see a few faces, put some names to the faces that we are meeting. We are a small group, so it's not a big group. So we would be able to have this exercise smoothly. So on this note, as the cameras are turning on. When all cameras are on, we will take a shot. As usual, we'll seek your permission that the screenshots that will be taken used for our social media posts. So if you don't agree, you wave at us, but I can see the smiles, so everybody agrees with us. Yes, we'll use it for our social media posts to let everybody know that you were here and you were part of this. So we have Joyce and John, J and J, to turn on their cameras. In Ghana, J and J means a lot, so please just I just ignore I just saw the John and then the Joyce, and I just said it has nothing got to do with anything. All right, so Fred.
Yes.
At this stage, we'll hand over to you, and then we would start. I hope the other colleagues, other partners would also join as we move along. So like I said earlier on, we're talking about HACCP and its relation to our production. Basically, if you have any question as we progress, you may type your question in the chat box and we'll take it up with Fred when he's done with the main presentation. So thank you very much, Fred. You can please move on.
Thank you, everybody, and I'll say good morning. This is a very important subject matter that we all need to understand and be able to apply it the way it should be applied. From the questionnaire, very few people have full knowledge of the implication of standard on what you do. It means that I have to encourage everybody to sign on and everybody to read at least the training material.
Fred, we cannot hear you.
Fred, your mic is off.
I think it's muted.
Hear me now?
Now it's okay.
Yes, yes.
Very good. So I'm saying that from the questionnaire and the response feedback, very few people know almost everything about HACCP as a standard for food operations. And I'm urging everybody to try and pay attention and even read these training notes. Reason being that it is a very important requirement for you to succeed in your food processing activity. Even here in Ghana, by the FDA regulations, you need to have a system which is based on the HACCP principles. And therefore, if you really want to grow your business, you should master the HACCP principles and how to implement it to derive the maximum benefits. Some said they've heard that it will facilitate market access, and that is a fact. In the EU, if you don't have the basic food safety standards like the HACCP, it's a no-go area for both food and fish. You know, I'm talking about processed food and fish and other products that we can derive from cassava. That is why I think, and I think you all agree with me, that this workshop or the webinar is very, very important and critical to our operations. So I'll begin by sharing the screen, the PowerPoint presentation with you, and you'll be in the position to ask all the questions and even follow the presentation as we move along. Let me put it on mine. Just a moment, please. Let me load my share my PowerPoint. Just a moment, please. Copy from here. Maybe can you step in so that you move a bit faster? I don't know why it's not showing on my
screen.
Yes.
I'll do that immediately.
Okay.
So which screen is this?
This is Fred. Fred, wait,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do that.
Okay. Not this. Not this. Yeah. That's, the other one is the application of quality and standards. Not this presentation.
Sorry.
Oh, no.
It's done. Okay. It's here.
Correct. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can you hear me loud and clear, please?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay. I'll run you through quickly. You will gain time, so don't worry. By way of introduction, I think I've said it all. I will proceed and then talk to you about the relevant quality and the standards that you need to apply. You are using two key words here. When we talk about quality, we are talking about fit for purpose. The product is fit for purpose. The degree at which we can comply with the specification and other regulation regarding the product under discussion. And when you talk about specific standards, you are talking about the product standard or the system standard. So in this case, we'll talk about two major standards that you can apply. The food safety standard, which is the HACCP, which is Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. Very basic food safety management system standard. If you don't have it, you may have challenges in your production. And then the other standard, which is also applicable, is the ISO 9000 series. Specific reference is made to the ISO 9001. In that standard, you have specific requirements for managing your system. It is not a product standard, I have to say, because a lot of people make claims that the product is ISO 9000 certified. There's nothing like a product having ISO 9000 certification. It's your system that can attest to that, that you have an ISO compliant system. And then you draw some few conclusions. So introduction is that the introduction, please. When you talk about the world of standards, it is changing very fast. And in the next decade, the promise is that it will continue to change both in West Africa and around the globe. Standardization, we cannot stop, and it's a moving wheel. It keeps changing depending on the conditions and the challenges that we face in commerce and in manufacturing. At the international level, standards are becoming a pillar of the new global system. The WTO has warned us we should not use standards as barriers to trade, but it's a de facto. The thing is that if you are not able to apply standard, you will find it very difficult to sell your products. So whether you like it or not, standards are very relevant in our production or the manufacturing operations. So it is becoming a very important global tool for commerce. At the same time, most of the international agreements in terms of commerce and trade agreements, codes are set out, and these are all using standards that relate to health, safety, and environment. And most of these standards are the system standards I mentioned earlier. So the markets are becoming very global, and supply chains cut across many borders. And I've mentioned earlier that international agreements and standards such as the ISO 9000 series of standards, the HACCP, which is the Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point, and ISO 14000 that relates to environmental management, can be used to facilitate our business or trade or commerce across borders. Even in West Africa, if you are not having some of these other the management system standards or the product standard, if you are not able to comply, you have challenges in exporting to our neighboring countries. So standard and the implementation of standards and the subsequent certification, if you implement the standards and you comply with all the requirements, then you go for the attestation, which is the certification that you comply with all the requirements within that specific standards. And this, if you're able to do it effectively and efficiently, it will increase your competitiveness. Why do I say that? They will measure, they will use the standard as the yardstick to measure your performance. So applying standards to ensure quality, and this quality is built in at each stage of your operation. Ensure quality at each stage or stage of your operation, from raw material acquisition through production, marketing, and to delivery. And in some instances, even after sales operations. So to deliver a product that is of consistent quality, then you should apply the quality standard as well as the product standard. That will definitely ensure the conformance to the requirements, and you may not have issues with the regulatory agencies. It provides consistent output, which is fit for purpose, because I said quality is about fit for purpose, the degree of complying with requirements. And this would definitely minimize waste, and therefore you are talking about ensuring minimal cost of production. Some people always say, oh, goods coming from abroad cheaper. Yes, they are cheaper because they are able to apply standards at the right way, and they are able to minimize wastage and therefore minimal product cost. The emphasis on applying some of these standards, especially the HACCP, is prevention rather than inspection. This is long gone. You do not waste the product and then later on you come to inspect and try to identify the defective ones. That is a waste of resource. And many food processing industry, they have their own way, established ways of operating, including methods of processing, manufacturing, handling, and these are entrenched in the way they do things. And there is a challenge there. As soon as you want to implement any standard like Hassa, it may require fundamental change in your culture and attitude. Why am I saying that? A good example is that you need to establish a written procedure manual that will ensure consistent quality production. And we also need to have written records, talking about documented information regarding your records, your results. But many industries, the tradition is that they don't write the procedures or the policies, no records. All they know is that, the procedural record of quality, of safety is in their head. And so if there's MD or the CEO or the production manager is absent, then we find ourselves wanting because we don't know what to do. We don't know what is right and what is wrong. The next slide, applying standards. For example, Hassa requires this fundamental change of attitude that I've mentioned. So focus on record keeping is just like bookkeeping. Documentation, when we talk about documentation, we're talking about thorough and accurate documents. And even if you're not going to change your procedures, your policies, the standard expects you to document it, write it down, not only hard copy, you can use any form of documentation, depending on how sophisticated you are in your. Therefore, companies who are trying to implement HACCP the first time, the main challenge or the bottleneck, they do not understand the concept of risk-based food safety control. What are you talking about? Because they are so linked to parameters, physical parameters, the temperature, the moisture content, and things like that, they forget to look at some of those risk-based parameters like pathogenic microbial contamination. So when you go into the details of HACCP, you see that the focus is on contamination, prevention of contamination, not only physical, chemical, but microbiological contamination as well. And that is the risk-based approach that we are talking about. The next slide, please. Applying standards. For instance, the Hassa, which has been developed by the Codex Committee for Food Hygiene of the Codex Alimentarius Commission, which is the food standard department or like unit of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And Codex Alimentarius Commission, they develop and promulgate food standards. It is very important that all the staff within your companies understand the HACCP system. That is why I'm saying that when we did a poll and I realized some say they have some idea. I'm not enthused, I'm not happy. Everybody should have an idea, full idea about HACCP. If you cannot even explain the details, at least you should be able to grasp the concept and how you can apply it and maintain it in your operation. So the adoption of HACCP simply to satisfy the regulation like FDA or any other regulator will lead to failure. The reason is that you should understand the principles and apply it to derive the benefits that we were trying to talk about earlier in the pool. Because you cannot export when you are not meeting these HACCP requirements. Very few countries or companies will buy your products because we are talking about health and safety here. Next slide, please. So, we are saying, WACOMP, that enterprises in the selected value chains, especially cassava processors, you are encouraged to implement the quality management system. Here, I'm referring to the 9001, that is the international, so that will help you comply with this international system standard. Why are you saying that? One of the major expected results of this WACOMP project is to engender quality and innovation in the intermediate organization. That's the people or the group that will help you do proper and efficient export and marketing, and then also strengthen SMEs compliance with standards and quality management so that innovation can be enhanced. Please, without the application of standards, you may not be able to improve the quality or the safety of your products. Next slide. So that is our appeal. we are calling on you to apply the relevant standard. But before you go into the details, let's look at the history and the principles of this HACCP that we're talking about. Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point, HACCP. Once you go into food production, you should be familiar with this terminology. It was developed several years ago as a microbiological safety system. That's why I'm saying the risk-based system. In the 60s, the US, when they started going to space, and they did that to ensure that the food that they supply to the astronauts are safe. And the HACCP is based on the principle that any hazard, I'll try to explain hazard later on, affecting the food system can either be eliminated or minimized. Elimination, you are talking about elimination, that's one of the ways, the tools, or you minimize when it's so difficult to achieve complete elimination by preventing any possible source of contamination. Rather than to wait till you finish 10,000 tons and you realize that they are contaminated either chemical, physical, or microbiologically. It is a goal to prevent hazard at the earliest possible point in the food chain. I said HACCP, you are mentioning food chain. You said from the terminology here, you say farm to fork or farm to the table. Meaning, we can approach it from this, right from the harvest to the point of consumption. And you provide greater confidence about the food safety, about your own food safety, if you like, to the consumer and the food regulatory authorities. Once you mention that, oh, you are implementing HACCP, they will give you some level of respect and you build confidence from there because they know if you are applying the principles that underpins HACCP system, then you are doing the right thing. So adding HACCP to your traditional inspection and quality control activities, which I know all of you are doing, will help you prevent quality assurance problems. And therefore, it will lead you to what? Preventive quality assurance system. We are talking about preventive quality, not reactive, preventive. I've explained HACCP, and this system defines, it tries to help you identify, evaluate, and control hazards, which are significant for your operations. You cannot control something if you cannot identify it, and therefore the consequence. So you identify and try to evaluate what will be the negative impact, the presence of that in your food or your commodity. And you come out with control measures. What is a hazard? A hazard. I always say that if you fail to manage those things that are associated with your operations or your activities, then you run into risk. And the consequence of risk, you all know, whether you are poisoning your consumer, the product is not fit for purpose. And when they begin to realize that, people walk away from your commodity or your product. And here we are talking about starch. And more so, we talked about what? High quality cassava starch. You see how they describe it. The adjective is high quality. That means the degree of compliance in terms of meeting the requirements is very, very high. Excellent, if you like. So the system looks for hazards. In other words, anything that could go wrong regarding product safety. Very simple explanation. Anything. So it can be physical, chemical, biological, and now we are even adding allergy. That will cause something to go wrong regarding the product safety. And you implement controls subsequently to ensure that that product or commodity will not cause harm. So the consequence of failure to control this hazard, identify hazard, will lead to what? Ill health. So if you cannot remember anything at all, to recap what I've said so far, the hazard analysis critical control point system looks for hazards or anything that could go wrong regarding your product safety. You don't do that, you are in trouble. You evaluate what you've identified and come out with control measures. We call them control measures. That will ensure that the product will not cause harm. Here you are referring to ill health to the consumer or the end user. The next slide, please. I've used these terms, but always it's good to understand the system, not only by definition, but to understand it so that you'll be able to use it appropriately. Hazard. Food hazards, environmental hazards. Here you are using hazard in the hazard system as a biological, chemical, or physical agent. The new food safety standard has even broadened the definition to substance in or a condition of food with the potential to cause adverse, the key phrase, adverse health effect. What are some of them? You fall sick, you have diarrhea, you have cholera, you have typhoid. These are all substances or conditions of food that can cause. So this has what? The potential to cause harm. So you have to put some brakes on that potential. Don't allow it to manifest itself in your commodity. How do you do that? Another phrase there is critical control point. So hazard analysis. Then the other letters are critical control point. CCP. You hear people throwing it about in industry, manufacturing. It is a step. But please add this, say Damra says so. It's either a step or point or a stage or a phase in your production operations where you should apply control. Very critical. If you're not able to identify these critical control points where control should be applied to eliminate food safety hazard or to reduce it, in some cases, very, 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 very impossible to eliminate it, especially when you are talking about these powders, cassava flour, or you're talking about alcohol. You may have the traces in there, and you have to do that. Now, you've looked at HACCP. Let's look at the aspect. ISO 9000. What does it mean? In your opinion, you are talking about supply chain. Sometimes you see people or product label carrying the reference to ISO 9000. What is it doing over there? Please, what does it mean? ISO 9000 certification is not for the product. It is for your system. So how can you ensure that your supplier understands what you put on the package or something, and what he should expect from you, and vice versa? Today you are the vendor, the next day you are the end user, and it goes on like that. So it's all part of the supply. It depends on where you find yourself at any material moment. The ISO 9001, the recent edition is 2015. It's an international standard that is requirement for your system, your management system. So you refer to as QMS. The HACCP is talking about your food safety system, which is also a management system. And I will not bore you with the 9000, but you can incorporate these two systems, the management and the food safety thing, to get a very, very, like superior system to control your food. Next slide, please. If you understand why the 2001.
Just a second, Fred, because there is somebody that has the mic open and we cannot hear anything.
Okay, sorry. Somebody's mic is on, please.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Item 856, your mic is on.
Fred, please hold on. The feedback is there.
It's still there.
Yeah, it's with somebody connecting with the phone.
Item, yes.
6. I cannot stop him.
Hello.
Okay, Fred, please go ahead.
Good. The objective of this management standard is simple: to provide a set of requirements that, if they are effectively implemented, meaning that you should understand the standard so that you can implement it well. So that it provide quality assurance, confident that your supplier can consistently provide goods and services. Goods but services meets your needs and expectation. It's only when we are applying the 9000 quality management system that you will understand this concept very well. Needs and expectation. So some of the needs is written, some of the expectation is written, others they are in their mind. And you, the supplier, the buyer expects you to be able to identify that needs, the requirement thereof, and meet those expectations. So in the new standard, you are talking about interested parties. You are not interested in the consumer or end user. It's an interested party. Somebody is just the marketing officer, but he is in how right. And also the standard, all these standard management systems, aside meeting the requirements of the standards, which is boldly defined in those documents, you must comply with the applicable regulations of the country or the jurisdiction. So meeting only the standard requirements is not enough. You should comply. So FDA regulation, you have to comply. GSA product certification protocols, you have to comply. The ISO 9000 does not, I will emphasize this phrase, does not specify requirements for goods or services that you are producing or you are manufacturing. That is why I said you should apply the relevant product standard in addition to this management system standard. It's up to you to define by specifying the requirements that you want to meet. And how do you do that? You can only do that effectively when you have copies or the relevant product standard. For instance, you should have a copy of the high quality cassava or the Starch standard. That is why the question was put whether you have any idea or read any of these standards developed and promulgated by Ghana Standards Authority. In the food industry, you can combine the two. Some of those big companies that they started with the 9000, that is the generic quality management system, and they added on the HACCP food safety system. Please, I must say here that the food industry in Ghana and even in West Africa and other international markets are highly regulated by the local, national, or the international law. That is why in Europe we have the alerts. If they are able to determine or even suspect that you are not meeting their requirements, you are kicked out. You are blacklisted. Consumers feel more confident when they have evidence of quality management. How do you do that? You demonstrate by attestation that you've gone for a quality management system certification, and therefore you manufacture or you produce in accordance with this system. Whether you are producing food, drink, please, you are being supervised and being monitored by the food regulation agencies. The ISO standard is generic in nature and has been developed to assist your company, irrespective of the size or the type of thing that you do, so that if you implement it and you operate it well, you have the maximum benefit in applying standards in your operation. I said companies that use a HACCP or a similar system, I said the HACCP is the basic food safety system that you can, as part of your quality assurance system, you are talking about quality assurance, preventive approach. It will help you. And some, they've gone a mile further by using both the 9000 and then the food safety, which is a HACCP, as an integrated system. This now the norm is that don't go for that standalone kind of thing, go for an integrated management system, because I mentioned issues about what? Environment. When you go in for that, these issues will be addressed, as far as even the health, occupational health and safety issues will be addressed by your integrated quality assurance system. So how do you apply HACCP within an ISO 9000 quality management system environment? When you do that, it is very effective because most of the requirements, they are either complementary or they supplement the one in the 9000 or the one in the HACCP system. The emphasis of both systems is prevention rather than correction of problems or deficiency after the okay. That is why some companies in their policy statement, their objective, you're talking about zero defect. Zero defect. They will not wait for the thing to go bad and go through testing and inspection to correct it. It's a waste of resource. So you plan your system. So in your HACCP plan, there are some elements that will try to detect and kick it out even before you start your operations. The HACCP system is guided by 7 principles, and this can be integrated into the ISO 9000. It's not 2018, it's 2015, the requirements to derive maximum benefit. Let's go on. What are you saying? Applying these specific product standards. See, you looked at the generic, the 9000, which is the management system. We've looked at the HACCP, which is the food safety system, and even how you can integrate the two. And please, because I'm saying that these two standards will not give you specific requirements for the product that you want to produce or manufacture. So you do this in addition to the product standard. Clarity here. Product standard is tailor-made, is specific. For instance, GS 762, which was published in 2008, I think by now they've even revised it, will give you specification, or if you like, the requirements for cassava flour. To the extent that even the definition, how to qualify something as cassava flour is defined in that standard. So if it is not in line or is in tandem of that definition, please don't call it cassava flour. You can call it some other name. This standard applies to cassava flour. And once they say it applies, they've defined the scope of application. And it's for what? Intended for direct consumption, human consumption. It's not say animal consumption. If you want to produce it for animals, say so. That will be the scope of it. And the HACCP system, you have something you call, you have to define the usage, whether adults or for infants. So if this standard says it's for adults, please don't give it to infants. It cannot be applied there. It is outside the scope of the standard. And HACCP will ensure you do that appropriately. What are the critical parameters that are necessary to meet the product quality standard requirement? Product what? Quality. I say quality is what? Fit for purpose. The degree at which you meet the requirements of that particular standard. If it says that the moisture content for this cassava flour should be between 10 and 12, they've given you a range. And the laboratory will assess that to make sure that you are within this acceptable range. Any value either below or above that is not acceptable. That is a defective product. So step one, to meet the product quality standard, you need to know. That is why I asked that question, whether you've read any of those product standards. So acquire a copy of the GS 762 and study whether it applies to what you are producing or not. Very critical, otherwise you miss the point. You go to the end and you see that you produce waste. It does not comply with the requirements of the standard. If you like, the specification. Formulate your product considering the product specification. So your design, that will go into HACCP again, of the equipment. What are you going to do? Is it vacuum packaging? Or you packed under controlled environment? It will also inform you the kind of packaging material you should use, because it should serve as a barrier. It will not absorb moisture, because you dry and you mill, you do everything, and it said the moisture content is 10%. And even that measurement will come in. I mentioned measurement. Is it by mass or volume? The standard will tell you how you should calculate the moisture content. Okay? Then we come to where you talk about process controls, because you don't want the moisture to go above or below the acceptable range. So you control your processing. If your processing floor, the packaging floor is too humid, that means too much moisture, obviously powder will absorb and you go beyond the limits. Okay? Do you have to do some kind of vacuum drying before you package? Process control. So consider the documented food safety management system, because in your system, you have a plan, a very comprehensive plan, how you are going to meet those requirements. And you follow the protocols. Please, it shouldn't be a wish list. I wish I do this, copy and paste. But when it comes to the practicality in your production, you cannot meet it because you don't have what it is. Now, you look at the requirements and you follow the requirements so that you can achieve the desired result. Now, let's look at the high quality cassava flour production. In terms of the implementation steps, the same. But when you want to talk about the food safety aspect, the risk-based thing I'm talking about, compliance with what? The Hassa principles. I may not take you through all because the Hassa lessons on its own, a big topic to discuss. But just to give you an idea what it entails. The first principle in the Hassa is principle by identifying the hazard. But when you go into the hazard implementation steps, this principle applies at step 6. The first 5 steps are preliminary stages. Prepare yourself before you do hazard identification. I said, the principle here is identify the hazard, do the evaluation, and implement the control measures that will minimize the level of contamination or eliminate it completely, depending on your system, how efficient, how robust your systems are. Once you are able to identify those hazards, whether it is biological, chemical, or physical, then you should determine the critical control points. What did I say? Critical control points. And I say these are steps or phases or stages in your production where you have to apply the brakes. I'm talking about the controls. And at that point, when you determine, you set the limits. You set the limits. How much microbes are allowed in your product, because your product is not only product standard. How much is allowed? Because Hassa is saying that you either eliminate it to acceptable level or you prevent it altogether. You see how beautiful this concept is. Then I'll jump you to principle number 4. It said establish a system to monitor control. To monitor control. And that is where sometimes testing, we're talking about online testing at a certain point in time, you draw samples and test whether you're on course. If the contamination is too high, you have to do what? Rework before you think of packaging. Because at the end of the day, the regulatory agent will see, because they will also follow these steps. The next slide, please. So these are very critical, and please, it will change depending on how complex your system and the processes. How do you do that? In the typical food processing and handling operation, there may be many potential hazards that could impact on your product. So that is why when you do the identification, you do what? Evaluation and group those that are significant to your product. Because you may have 1,001 hazards. Are they all relevant or significant to you? No, you do proper analysis to identify several and you try to do some elimination if you like. So you go through your process flow diagrams. At what point do I add, for instance, the fermented cassava to the dryer? At what temperature? You monitor all this. And you can do direct observations of the process. Direct observation, that's when we're doing the monitoring, the measurement. Please, observations is different from doing actual measurement, real-time measurement, where you'll be able to quantify. In observation, in most cases, you cannot quantify. All you do is at present, absent. Okay, not okay. What is okay? What is not okay? At what degree do you say it's okay? Very subjective. But you only observe to make sure that the process is being followed religiously. Then sometimes you have to look at some of the historical performance. Okay, you came out of this high quality cassava flour, you supply, and the market intelligence said there was no complaint. Were there any incidents in the production factory? Which incidents very, very, very important. So you log all this and you do the trending. How many complaints did you receive from this batch or this lot? Then you identify the problems associated with that. Sometimes the root cause is just the sourcing, where you had the raw materials from. It's a challenge. And when you're able to identify that, they say, oh, I'm sorry, I'll change my supplier because I'm bound to encounter challenges when I process this cassava materials. So these are some of the things historical. And then you do a lot of brainstorming, discussing, people with different expertise coming on board. The chemists will come, the microbiologists will come, the food scientists will come together, and then you find solution. That is how you identify the hazard. And here you're talking about assessment, identification, and assessment. Not only identification, you identify, assess, do the evaluation, and know the impact on your operation. And sometimes that's the tool I like most because it applies across all quality management systems. The cause and effect analysis. And this one, you have to go through some quality control training to be able to do this cause and effect analysis, where you call the Ishikawa or the fishbone approach to identify the causes of problems. Next slide, please. So, practical example. I'm saying that in your high quality cassava flour production, please incorporate HACCP study. That is assessment, identification, and assessment, that thorough study into your CCP, that's the critical control point, so that you can actually come out with a quality product. And it all starts with the planning. Quality realization planning process. Your objective for this plan is that you want to identify all those challenges, take them out or minimize it, and you come out with a quality product. Then identify the potential users and consumers. Who is the potential user? Next step in the chain, he is going to reprocess. So what we are giving is semi-process or semi. You need to apply some heat or do some baking before you consume. So please give careful consideration to the special requirement of specific group people. It says diabetic. So please be careful. Hypertensive, be careful the amount of maybe sodium chloride or whatever sucrose that you add. And tell them that this is not ready to eat product. It's not like biscuits, cassava cake. This is a raw material that you can use to do other things. Be careful and specify that. And when you say determine the specific consumer and the regulatory requirements, because the FDA Code of Practices will tell you, to the extent that it will even tell you the control limits. For instance, the pesticide residues, heavy metals, and the test methods, because one thing that studies have told us, depending on where you cultivate your cassava, the heavy metals, the lead contents, arsenic, the cadmium levels may differ. Okay? And these are trace elements. No matter what you do, you may find it in the end product. Okay? So these are the things that you should be aware of, and it all come from your HACCP analysis. Next one, please. What are you saying? The next thing is that you should even look at your purchasing processes. We're talking about management, so start from A to Z. Your purchasing processes. Garbage in, garbage out. If you buy substandard raw material, don't expect anything. You can do all the magic by in-process controls, but you can't have it 100%. So your processing process. Check your suppliers. When we need to demand material safety data report, do so. And whether they are capable of even adhering to the limits that you set for the raw material, your equipment, your cleaning, these are all part of the controls. And then you develop your hazard plan. And here, don't forget to include traceability, so that if there's something wrong, you can go back to the source and correct it. Next, please. Next slide, please. Now let's look at the controls for storage. You've done a good production, good outcome, but storage handling poor. Delivery conditions bad. You do not transport or deliver an appropriate vehicle under the appropriate temperature and humidity control. Talking about hygiene, some of the delivery vans, when you see it, say this one is going to deliver high quality cassava, you walk back because the hygiene, the sanitation is poor.
Fred, sorry, you are muted. Can you please?
Sorry,
Perfect.
what happened? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me go through. I'm saying that after delivering high quality product, here we're talking about high quality cassava product, you should be mindful of the storage condition, because poor handling, storage handling, will not allow you to deliver a high quality product you intend to deliver. The delivery conditions, including temperature and humidity control. And I'm emphasizing hygiene, sanitation. Some of the delivery vans are so dirty and they are infested of all kinds of pests, roaches. For cassava, one of the things that you see, Drosophila, those flies, that will come because of fermentation. And this will contaminate your product. If you should apply some level of pasteurization or sterilization, please define it well in the processes and have people trained to manage that phase. I said phase, stage, or point. Because if you miss that, you've missed everything in the Hassa system. Please do not rely solely on end product testing because they can disappoint you. Assuming you did 20 tons of cassava flour, they do the sample, that is not 100%, you fail, and they increase the sample size, the frequency, and you fail. At the end of the day, they will say everything has failed because they have their sampling plan. What are you going to do with that defective product? Waste of resources. You can never grow your business if you fail to apply qualities.
That can never affect us.
Let's hope so. So please, because we are paying attention to some of these important details, how to manage, very important. So end product testing should not be the deciding factor. That's all I'm saying, because it's dangerous. It didn't help anybody in the 60s when they tell you about the World War, the number of ammunition that they wasted. That is why they applied quality standard, because it was very expensive to have those ballistic missiles and waste it to fire, and it is at 80 degrees tangent. Nobody wants to do that. That is why they got this in the early days, so when you talk about quality and specification, application of standard is in the military. And then it goes down to industry. So I'm glad that you say it will never happen. I'm very happy that you said that. Next slide, please. Ebe, can you help me? Yes. You know this thing, the statement is that it will never happen. But please, there is nothing like zero defect production. Not even in NASA. So the defects will come. The question is, how do you address or handle this non-conforming? When you say non-conforming, that it did not meet the full gamut of the requirement, the specification. The standard says you should handle this because they know you don't have a zero defect system. It's not an ideal system. So what do? This will come back to you by way of complaints. So you document the complaint, you investigate it, and you deploy the appropriate corrective action. Let me tell you something. As a nation, see, some challenges will keep recurring, come over and over year after year, because we have not done proper investigation and corrective actions. If you are not able to pinpoint the cause, that's why I say use the cause and effect analysis. Please, it will happen again. Trust me. And that is the challenge we have in Ghana as I speak. The root cause analysis is not properly done. It's not effectively and efficiently done. So it will come again. So when you start having complaints, some will say, oh, we received the powder full of weevils. What is it telling you? Go back and check your drying processes. To the extent that sometimes is that the manpower, you have to change the manpower because the machine is good. The method is okay. But the person who is operating the machine is not good. So complaints you should make. And please always investigate and give the complainant some kind of feedback. Otherwise, you say what? The bad complaint guys will walk away with their feet. That's what you say in management, quality systems. They don't want to offend you, but they won't buy from you. Simple. Your person that somewhere has imported several tons of powder, you go once, twice, they say, always a problem, I won't buy from you again. And diplomatically say, oh, business is not good, so you stop importing. And yet it's importing 3 times what he was buying from you elsewhere because he was not having these challenges. Business can be very, very tricky, but when you are focused and you apply the standards, you will succeed. So you control the non-conforming product. And sometimes you will even be forced to go and do laboratory tests to confirm, verify. There are several ways of doing that. Now, let's go to the general quality principle. Please, one thing that we don't sometimes include in our planning is the training. Training of the operative staff. I said, when we talk about the cause and effect, one of the causes from the manpower, the people that you use. Take him from anywhere, but you can train, upgrade him, and qualify him. Internal audit and management review. You will never audit, but audit is very good. That's one of the key activities to improve your operations. And it will cover almost everything. Management review. Look at all those audit reports and what can you do to improve. Measurement, trend. Because absolute figures will not give you a clear picture. Do the statistics, trend, and see where are the areas that you have challenges and address them. So periodic review of audit reports and data. Manage the data. Management should look at the data to ensure that your HACCP system will provide the result. So in the HACCP system, you do something we call the review to check. Review means to check, ascertain whether it's giving you the desired result. So you set your KPIs based on what you see. Like this year or the last part of the year, I don't want to receive any complaints because last year, the same last 3 months, I received 20 complaints regarding XYZ. This year, I don't want to receive any complaint. And then you measure the performance against the KPI. Otherwise, you think you are doing well, you're not doing well. Next slide, please. So, please, HACCP approach and they are complementary. So, if you've not settled on any of this, I will encourage you to adopt your HACCP to control your food safety requirements. If you have a better understanding, because 9,000 is not all over the place, you can integrate the two. But HACCP-based quality management system will provide you some 2 certificates. One, through audits, that is a certification of your quality system to the 9,000, and the other one to the Codex HACCP system. So when you talk about having that generic quality management certificate and then the specific food safety certificate, that is HACCP. Please, to venture into export, if you don't have any of this, I'm sorry, you will face a lot of challenges in your export drive. That is why WACOMP wants to make sure that you are on course, you address some of these challenges, and you're on top of it. So keeping quality from farm to fork, or people like it from farm to the table, will contribute to your sustainable production, trade, and a lot more people will consume your products. Let's try and draw some conclusions from this. Next slide, please. Keeping quality is an efficient tool to reduce economic, climate, and the resource impact on wasted food, and that will improve our food redistribution and security. Because I heard it that no, you will not throw your whole consignment away. Even if you do rework, and trust me, even the so-called giant company, they do rework, and it's not cheap to do rework. Energy, manpower, everything. The packaging material, you have to destroy it and bring fresh ones. It's all cost. So reduce that, and this will affect the environment as well, directly or indirectly. And it will impact on our food security. There's availability of food at the right time. Okay? So HACCP, very good. Quality standards will actually facilitate your international trade endeavor. So I will encourage everybody in this value chain to improve your production in terms of quality, improve your profitability, and protect the consumer's interest. So by way of conclusion, it is important for any SME in this either starch or high quality cassava flour production to apply the relevant product standard and to use the HACCP principle. Please. Because the internal benefits such as reducing the risk to your manufacturing or production, the risk of selling unsafe products, and thus providing better confidence. Because, like I said, if the buyer start experiencing challenges, loss of confidence, loss of trust, you stop buying. And the food regulators will not allow you to go to sleep. So please adopt the HACCP as part of your system, because it is part of the regulation systems in Ghana and elsewhere. So by implementing HACCP, you'll be better prepared to export, better prepared to export and succeed in your export business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fred, for this comprehensive production. So that's Fred's contact details that is currently on the screens. You can take a screenshot. If anytime you need extra information, you can contact him. So the message is that we should be able to promote HACCP, use the principles to produce products that are risk free, so that we can sell to make money, because we're all here for money, that we can be able to sell our products in various markets. The question is now, we thank him. We open the floor for questions. We are not that many. I checked the chat console and there are no questions. So if you have any questions, you may unmute yourself. We take like 3 questions and then Fred will answer and then we can continue. So who would shoot first, please? Okay, we have a question from David.
Okay.
David,
Yeah, David raised his hand to I suppose to ask a question. David, are you there?
Edmas, yes, David.
My question is to check the supply source is critical in all these standard processes. And most of the time you are dealing with smallholder farmers, where and how do you go about those things? They are the main source from which you buy.
We can't. I can't really hear you. I hope Fred understood the question, but
it was very okay. You are talking.
Otherwise, David, can you type it in the chat, please?
Okay. David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Fred.
Very good. As you type, so that you all get clarity on the question. But
I think, no, Mr. Chairman, please hold on. I think Anastasia wants to ask a question. We can have a couple and you take them. Anastasia, please go ahead.
I'm asking about marketing.
Good.
Yeah, because in my area, the transportation is very difficult for us.
Okay.
So you have to get a ordinary truck or other cars to maybe transport your goods. Yeah, and you know that they are not all that neat. So as for our situation, how can we control those drivers to clean their, because you can ask them to do it, but they won't do it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So we have 2. Nana, raise your hand. Nana, please, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. Hello.
Yes.
I just wanted to find out. I missed the earlier part of the presentation, but I got the part that we need to get a copy of the GS762 standard.
Yeah.
But I want to ask that on the side of the ISO and the HACCP, are there documents that need to be purchased, or how do we go about it? Is there a document that we'll have to purchase, or there's a group that we'll have to contract to come and assist, implement the standards, so on and so forth? How do we actually take the steps to implement it?
Sure. Fred will now take, we have 3 questions. So Fred will now answer these 3 questions and we'll come back. Fred, please, you may go ahead.
Yes. The first question is talking about smallholder suppliers.
Yes.
And you are talking about how to go about it. You see, in this food safety thing, you are talking about the value chain, or if you like the supply chain. And HACCP talks about trying to bring everybody on board. You are in the process in the middle somewhere there. But HACCP also look at what is happening both upstream and downstream. So you have to assist them in any way to meet your expectation. Okay, I said your needs and expectation. How do you do that? Incorporate them in your orientation, your training, your sensitization workshop, and things like that. Come to their level and spell out the consequence of their behavior or attitude on your side and how you can help them address those issues. Supplier, tell him, observe very basic fundamental requirements. You harvest. They say put it in a container, a basket, a sack. Okay? Keep it away from other contaminants, undesirable materials. You cannot harvest and heap it just beside a refuse dump. That's not good enough. So what will it take to segregate, to keep it away from there? Keep it away from animals, so the goats and sheep will not come and start destroying your cassava. Because if you fail to do that, what are you doing? You are introducing some contaminant that you may not be able to control. So basic education, sensitization. Then tell the supplier they are part and parcel of the supply chain. So they should help you achieve. Otherwise, how do you generate enough money to go back and buy in large volumes? These are the things, the cascading effect. Let them be aware. So awareness creation, education. Supply a small scale, you help them. You help them, bring them up so that they can also improve their operations. Otherwise, you start having problems with supply. Because whatever comes is rotten. They harvest, they didn't handle it well, so it's rotten. Are you going to take that rotten cassava? No. So you educate, share ideas, and let them buy into that concept of quality. The other one was talking about marketing, transportation. I mentioned the transportation.
Yeah.
You all accept and agree it's a challenge. But there too, some little education. You go and inspect maybe the Abubuya or the Muhammad Kambu that is coming to cooperate, I think. I said, gentlemen, I think you use this thing to carry some animals from somewhere to somewhere. Can we do some small washing, cleaning before you carry my consignment? The second point is that if you carry, please don't go and sit on top of my consignment. I go to industry a lot, and that has been some trucks come and I call the CEO. This truck don't find somebody who's more, if like, quality compliant. They bag the thing and they are sleeping on top of all their chalawite and their soiled clothing. Is that what you paid for? They can create a sitting space. Look, it's all over. Even the drinking water suppliers. Look at the trucks and see where the loaders sit. It is not good transportation practice. So we are talking about good transportation practice. Please, education, enlighten them that yes, you don't have your own vehicle to transport your consignment, but they should help you meet those quality requirements. So, madam, I agree with you, but talk to them. Orientation. Let them buy into that concept of quality. Quality is just fit for purpose. It didn't say additional cost. Quality cost. If you know quality cost and you manage it well, you end up coming out of very cheap products. That is why sometimes when I go to factory and people say the imported items are cheap, I say you have a problem. You're either using too much energy or you're not managing your resources well. So it will add on to the cost. You produce and about 30% is waste. Who's going to pay for that 30% waste? Cost build up. You have to spread it and the unit price will go high. People will talk about it. So it's management. Management, simple terms, plan, direct, and control. Simple. Plan well, take into consideration all those potential challenges, and put in place the controls to prevent. So at the end of the day, you don't lose much.
Okay, can we go to the third one?
Thank you.
Third
On where
question
to get
is
standards.
about standards.
Yes.
For the GS standard, you all know is for sale. So that specific standard for high quality cassava, you can procure a copy from the GS Ghana Standards Authority Library. ISO, similar. You buy from GSA, but the beauty is that for Codex Food Safety Standard, they are free. Go to the Codex Alimentarius Commission website. You can download all the standards that you want, free. The UN has paid, FAO has paid for the commission to generate and produce standards for you to download free. I don't think anybody can ask you to buy a Codex standard. The Codex standard, when it goes to the HACCP, is key. So much information you cannot even consume. How to implement, what are the things that you need to do. That's why it's like when you want to go into HACCP, it's a whole lecture, a whole day thing, and they keep on adding knowledge onto HACCP. So
Okay.
I also buy GSA buy Codex free.
All right. So we thank you, Mr. Jamna. We continue. If there are other questions, let's take the next. We'll take like the next round of questions, then we can move on. Joseph from WACOMP has something to say. So Joseph, please go ahead.
Okay, so for my side, it's not really a question. I thank everybody for the very strong participation in today's meeting. I've seen a few people on the call or the conference call that I haven't met, and for that reason, I also feel that you probably also haven't met me. So just use this as an opportunity to introduce myself first and foremost. My name is Preventive. I'm the cluster and network expert for Cassava, the WACOMP project. But I think that we have to move this conversation up to the next level, which is what next steps? What maybe we can have like a round of feedback from everybody that's on the call. What next steps are we going to commit ourselves to? Maybe we can start from like Anastasia, Alaji, and then you can tell us based on what you have heard today, what are the next actions that you intend to commit yourself to? And then based on that, we as a project can then say, this is where we can also, meet up with you so that we can help, so that we're able to help you to really improve your project. Yeah, thank you very much. So maybe if Charles, if you agree with me, this is an exercise.
Okay, so we will do that, but maybe we'll come to that just in a moment. Before that, if we have other questions bordering on what Mr. Jamna asked, we can take a few more questions. Then we address Joseph's interesting point that he's also brought up. Fifi, can you mute?
Alaji, please, thank you.
Right.
All right. Any question? And then David, your question, if you cannot, others did not hear us, if you can type it into the chat for us. Any other contribution, any other question?
Charles.
Yes, Fred.
I don't know. I've seen one of these processors here. Is it Edmax? Yeah.
Yeah, Edmax is here.
Edmax.
This is David Muffin.
David. Oh, okay. I don't know whether you were following some of the discussions with your MD regarding the challenges that we were having with your quality when it came to the regulator assessing the quality of your final products. Have you made any progress? Because I told him the starting point is that put in place a system that will try to monitor right from the raw material to the finished product before you even make any attempt to do lab testing. Because that is the end. If there's some problems in there, there's no way you can address it unless you go and do real work. And that's a lot of money and a waste of time. And if you're not careful, you will lose your registration status. So are you aware that something is going on?
Yes, we
Eric
progress.
or David, whoever.
Yes,
No,
correct. We did, and we sent our sample back for those analyses. Then we can confirm since we don't have the capacity to do it on our own. We just need to confirm with the lab. That's all we have done.
David, you are not clear. I didn't hear much of what you said.
What I'm saying is that's right. We have made some improvements.
Oh, good.
And what we need to do is to confirm from the lab, because the lab that draw our attention to the fact that there were some shortcomings.
Okay.
So we have sent a new lab request.
Okay.
It will be ready by the close of the week.
Very good.
So
that is how you solve non-conforming product. You see, you work at it again and again until you have it perfect, and you document how you achieve that result, so that next time you won't run through the same cycle again. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. It looks like we don't have further questions. So beyond here, I think to make our lives much more easier, as Joseph said, where do we go from here? Joseph, can we do it in this way? I don't know how much more time we have on our hands. It's 12:40. Sometimes if we keep them too much, can we just please ask that we put, Joe, if you don't have their contacts, is it easier to we pick their contacts in the chat so that we contact them thereafter? Nanada, so your hand is up. Can you please go ahead?
Most of them are most of them who Joseph may not know are
oh, they are coming from
okay. Of the platform. So
all right.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so then Catherine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Catherine. So maybe beyond this call, we get in touch with Joseph and we share the contact, and then we can have some discussions with the other members as well. For our next line of action. Sure. It's also interesting to let all members here know that WACOMP is planning to be getting a pool of experts to train, to help accompany, handhold, come to some of these companies to help you with your quality measures. And so we will be coming back to you. We COVID has slowed us down, but we are still headhunting for the experts to train. And once the experts are done, I think one of the key things, that's why it's good to have another discussion with Joseph. So Joseph will know your peculiar needs, and then we can assign some of the experts we have on hand to help you come to your various workstations, see what the challenges are, and then they will help you to overcome some of the challenges with regards to implementation of all the GMPs and the quality principles, either associated with HACCP or anything that comes with it. So it will be very much appreciated if we get in touch with Joseph. There's something good in the basket for the offering that we all must be prepared to achieve. Then maybe before we wrap up in a minute, since we have quite a few new ones here. So this is WACOMP, just to introduce ourselves to you. This webinar is being organized by the West Africa Competitiveness Program. In short, we call it WACOMP. It's funded by the EU in all West African countries. In Ghana, it's being implemented by UNIDO. And we have three main value chains. We have cosmetics and personal care products, fruits, mango, pineapple, and then we have cassava as one of, and derivatives as one of our main. That's why today we are here talking about cassava. So we're not talking about anything but cassava today. And Joseph, Joseph Yeboah, who introduced himself, is our expert, yes, with his hands up, those of you. Joe, raise your hand again so that they can, yeah, waving, yes. He's our expert there, and then Joseph would get in touch with you wherever you are. I mean, we have restrictions on movement because of COVID, but by the magic of technology, we can always meet, and then we can also have some experts in the regions where you operate who would be able to visit you. So on this note, we want to thank all of you. As we asked about the standards, all standards available, GSA is for sale. The codex, they are online for free. And before we wrap up, since this is a Cassava thing, and we have some new visitors or some new colleagues, I will let Joseph say a few words before we wrap up. So Joe.
And then we take a group photo.
Yes, please. Yeah, Linda, thanks for the reminder. So after Joseph is done, we'll humbly request that we all turn on our cameras. If I even as Joseph is talking, let's turn on our cameras so that we'll take a group photo. As I sought your permission earlier, we'll use this picture for our social media handles so that everybody will get to see those of us who participated. So when you turn your camera on, make sure that you can see yourself in the camera. It means that we can also see you. And put on one of your best smiles. All right, Joseph, please go ahead. Whilst Linda.
Thank you very much, Charles. And thank you very much, everybody, for joining. I was anticipating or expecting that we'll get some specific next steps from each participant so that we can follow up on these specific areas of need, of interest for the participants. But because of time, I'm sure that we can be able to do this afterwards. But I can see that we have, all the people that we are working with seem to be still also partners or the members of the Ghana Industrial Cassava platform. So, and I just want to say that we have already entered in, we are partnering with the Ghana Industrial Cassava platform. So we see all of you as partners on this project, and we expect that moving forward, we'll be able to work collaboratively together so that we'll be able to achieve our collective objective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joe. So on this note, on behalf of the WACOMP team, yes, the slides will be posted on our website. The recordings of this webinar on our website. It's WACOMP Ghana. Just type, we are so popular these days. When you search, you will not miss us. WACOMP Ghana will pop up. You go to the website, you go to under training, you go to webinars, and you find it there. By end of this day, within the day, it will be posted. You find all the slides. You can share the information. On Friday, we have another webinar coming up. Please, the flyer is all over. Joe will give to Catherine. Catherine will also share with all members. Please find time to join us again on Friday as we do justice to another all-important topic again in terms of quality measures again. So on Friday, we are talking about QMS and HACCP food systems. So please join us on Friday at 11 a.m. Come and then listen the benefits. We're talking again about the benefits of HACCP on all quality management systems and then the food systems, so that we can improve our systems. Our products should meet international quality to be able to sell on the markets and also within the regional and international markets. On this note, we want to thank all of you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time with us. It's been 1.5 hours of solid information sharing, and look forward to meeting all of you with other stakeholders on Friday. Catherine, do you have something to say?
Yes. What I wanted to say was that I realized that some people were asked to represent their bosses or something. So okay. If you are part of those, I'll just share my number on the chat so that you can just call me so that I'll put your name down.
Okay.
Going forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
So eBay has put a link there. It's wacompghana.org/webinars. And so you go and then you find. So Catherine's number is also there, 0541 36435. You should also contact her so that she puts the name and your details in place, and that can also be shared with Joseph, and then we can connect again. Yes. On this note, as I said earlier, we thank all of you so much for joining us. We look forward to meeting you on Friday, 11:30. And then next week on the 22nd, 23rd, we'll also have another webinar. But not to confuse you, just join us on Friday, 16 at 11, and then we'll also prompt you the next webinar. On this note, we thank all of you so much, and we believe that we'll be able to implement the principles as we've learned today. No matter the difficult times and the challenges we have, it's still possible. I like what Mr. Jamna said. Talk to our partners and they will understand. Even the Bobo Yah person will understand he has to clean. And I believe that once we do that, quality will be the hallmark of our products. On that note, we say bye-bye from the entire WACOMP team. Captain, thank you for coming along with your team members, Joseph and everybody. We say bye. We meet again on Friday.
Thank you.
Bye.